that I put this ad together. Margaret Liss asks the second one. Poster of the cover to number 53. One version just has the art, called Countess Michelle Poster. Another one has the art plus text in red, like no other comic. Which credit where it's due. That don't have the name slip your mind. Vice President at DC Comics, Richard Brunning. Richard Brunning was the one who came up with like no other comic. I thought that was brilliant. I thought all we had to do was have a good graphic, and again, we would be getting incredibly rich overnight. I'm thinking the like no other comic was sent to Comic Shop, but what about the no text one? And which poster came first? That's a very good question. My memory isn't good enough on it, but I think the like no other comic was the first choice. Was the first one that we did, and I think what we always tried to do was to send the same number of posters that the distributor ordered comic books. If you ordered 100 copies of Cerebus every issue, then we would send you 100 of the posters. Please send these to your account, which probably didn't happen, or if it did, it didn't happen as reliably as it should. And Cerebus wasn't really in that category. It's like, yes, good idea, comic stores like posters, and people glom onto posters, but they glom onto DC posters and Marvel posters and Epic magazine posters and all of the major brands. They're not going, wow, that's a really cool poster for a comic book that I've never heard of. That's just this weird, funny animal and this chick in her bedroom, and not doing anything particularly interesting, considering that they're in her bedroom. So it really didn't work in that sense. And then I think after that it was, wow, that's a really great poster. I'd really like to get one of those, but why does it say like no other comic on it? It's like, well, because it's supposed to be an ad. It's supposed to be something that's going to attract attention. Well, all it did was attract bad attention. If you take that off, I would really like to get one of those. The comments on Facebook, perhaps the Countess Michelle Poster was the one that came with newsletter number 10 with a question mark. That's very possible. I'm assuming from that somebody has a newsletter number 10 that refers to the poster that, or a poster that everybody got, and no mention of what the poster was, and that's why it could be a distinct possibility. Probably sent folded, so you might want to check the one with no type on it and see if it's folded down the middle so that it would be possible to mail it comfortably to the fan club members. Number 2 is cut off. Someone got a copy of the Countess Michelle Poster at a signing you did in, and I turn to the next page, and it doesn't say in. So,
how do I do this?
quickly, and efficiently.
All right. With the button.
It's definitely my 1980s signature. I can't.
Oh, Margaret actually, her actual email to me says someone got a copy of the Countess Michelle Poster at a signing you did in, and that's it. So this is on Margaret, not on us.
You're driving us crazy. Oh, this is great. It's everybody's fault but ours. The first half of the show, is Dagan's fault, and now the second half of the show is Margaret's fault.
This is what Margaret gets for selling that tracing paper drawing you sent her ex-girlfriend, who was her girlfriend at the time, of Ham Ernestway naked.
Did I do that?
Yeah, you. It was, how do you learn to draw Ernest Hemingway? Well, first you got to do it new, and it's him sitting on the camp stool, and he's only wearing a hat and boots, and obviously he's sitting so you can't see any of his naughty bits. But you sent it to Margaret for her girlfriend at the time, years ago.
And then Margaret sold it?
I believe she auctioned it on eBay.
Okay.
So this is what Margaret gets for getting rid of it.
There you go. There you go. Well, we'll make this a stay tuned for February when Margaret will let us know what came after the inn. What came after the inn, Margaret Liss. I probably had more, but I forgot. Plus, Dave did a two-parter with the page from the notebook I asked about. Thank you, Dave, for that. You're quite welcome. I was talking to Wilf on the phone, and Wilf Jenkins, and he's sort of come back to visit a moment of Cerebus a few times now, and I was explaining to him about Please Hold for Dave Sim, and that it's very easy for Cerebus Fangirl, who has all of the notebooks, to find a notebook page and go, oh, this is interesting. I wonder what this is about. And just say, Dave, can you tell me what this is about? And it's like, I can, but 3 of those are going to take probably an hour and a half just to explain. And then everybody's going to go, oh, well, that really wasn't much of anything. It's, I usually listen to Please Hold for Dave Sim, but that was even overdoing it for me. But speaking of overdoing it, I wrote next to Margaret's note there, Peter Nygaard, who is a Canadian fashion maven, billionaire as far as I know, and has gotten himself into Me Too trouble, Jeffrey Epstein style Me Too trouble, possible underage girls at his palatial estate on some island in the Caribbean, I think it is. Anyway, what interested me about the story was going back to the pedophile thing. One of the things that has happened to Peter Nygaard out of this situation, and he's a flight risk. They had a piece on it in the National Post this morning saying that he has been denied mail because the same as what's her name, you're a flight risk. You have no shortage of ways to get away from justice. We don't want you getting away from justice. But one of the things that had come up in an earlier article that I was reading about him was that his 2 sons are suing him for statutory rape, for having his girlfriend or wife at the time have sex with them when they were underage. And it's like, okay, that's in that weird Joseph Kennedy, patriarch, Kennedy style thing. I think we agree on that now as a consensus that you don't want to do that. That underage boys, like underage girls, shouldn't be having sex. But if you look at that one, it's I'm moved to wonder, were the sons really traumatized by this and are like piling on dad with everybody else? at this time, or is this a way of keeping some money in the family by having them sue their father? Because there are enough Me Too complaints against this guy that the empire's probably gone at this point. However many creditors he's got, they're circling like vultures and hyenas. So there's no way that he's going to be leaving his estate to his son. So possibly the only way for them to get money out of this and to hang on to some of their father's estate is to sue him for statutory rape. How would you determine that was the case or that wasn't the case? And this is where I think you get into these really, really awkward areas where it's like, yes, this is a completely unsavory thing that has happened in the past. The courts aren't competent to adjudicate this. There's just too much stuff happening behind the scenes. Another permutation of that one is, what's the culpability of the wife or girlfriend who, at his behest, raped his son? Obviously, the story would be, well, he told me to do it, so I did it because I did what he told me to do. But is that a defense? Like, if you're admitting that you did that, and the two sons are both saying, yes, she did that, you have free will. I mean, very possibly if you're shacked up with a billionaire or you're the trophy wife of a billionaire, you know how the game is played, and if I want to keep this going, then I'm going to have to do what he tells me. And it's like, but again, that's not a defense. That's this is why I don't think we can let go of statutory rape to the extent that some people seem to be and have been for generations pointing towards. Like, we have to. There's gray areas here. I don't think there's any gray areas in that. Again, I have trouble wrapping my head around the fact that, okay, if this guy is a fashion billionaire, then he's probably got a super hot girlfriend or a super hot trophy wife. And if you're a 13-year-old boy or a 14-year-old boy, it's like the old Playboy cartoon of the kid unwrapping a buxom girl in a negligee on Christmas in front of his parents and going, gee, you're the best mom and dad ever. It's like, yeah, I would think that would be your reaction. But again, I do have this Cerebus fan said, no, I was seduced by an older woman when I was underage, and it was severely traumatic, and I haven't got over it, and I don't think I'll ever get over it. And it's like, I think you have to, I don't know, can you extrapolate that to everybody and say that's always going to be the case? And we have to prosecute these things.
And it's also a question of, the details of, was dad drinking? Was the trophy wife or girlfriend drinking? Were they making the kids drink? I mean, it's one of those, there's sordid details that nobody really has any need to know. But at the same time, in a court of law, was everybody high on coke? I mean, was this in the middle of a giant bacchanal party? Suddenly somebody, the kid comes downstairs, going to drink water, and it's, hey, you're downstairs during the party. Guess what? You're in the party.
See, that's the same way that I think of this. It's like in the courts, you can't jump back and forth between Well, no, that encroaches on people's privacy to ask questions like that. Or you're trying to slut shame by saying, this is the person's sexual history. It's like, well, you kind of have to. I mean, the average person doesn't do this. Presumably, unless the entire culture is pretending, okay, well, yeah, we all do this, but we all pretend that we don't. I don't think that that's the case, in which case, if you're going to bring this up in a legal proceeding, as the Emperor Claudius said in Robert Graves' I, Claudius, let all the poison lurking in the mud hatch out. You can't just say, okay, let's examine this partly. It's like, no, if it's this poisonous, then you have to keep going. And if you're going to put it in the newspaper, if you're not going to say, well, okay, this has got a publication ban attached to it, you're not allowed to talk about any of this. It's like, well, if it's in the newspaper, tell me what you have to tell me that's relevant to the story. Otherwise, you're just, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, having a titillating story. So, okay, there you go. That was another one of those. This is the conversation that I've been having in my head since 1969, 1970, 1971, and there still are no clear answers, or certainly not as many clear answers as our society seems to be portraying to itself. It's like, no, we know what's right and wrong. This is right. This is wrong. And it's like, I can't picture any jury sending, like, however old the trophy wife is now, probably in their 50s or something like that. Are you going to send her away for the length of time you would send somebody away for statutory rape of an underage teenager? And would you send a woman away for the same length of time that you would send a man away for the same crime? And if you wouldn't, or you don't, then aren't we into, okay, if we're talking about equality, then you've got to have equality before the law. If a man did this, he gets the same crime as if a woman does this. And it's like, I don't think we're there, but we keep pretending that we have very, very clear demarcations on this.
Well, and the thing about these kind of cases that always bugs me is, okay, they go to court, the jury rules against her. How many years ago was this? And what if in the intervening years she's become a nun? Do we believe as a society in redemption where somebody can, be accused of a terrible crime and then actually say, yes, I did, do the time and then be redeemed of, okay, hey, I did wrong, but now I'm a better person, I volunteer in a soup kitchen, I live in a one bedroom apartment, that has 300 square foot, blah blah blah. I'm not living that life anymore.
Right. Right. And that gets over into, well, that's not court of law stuff. That's religion stuff. That's like repentance and atonement, and that courts of law don't really take that into account because they're not really set up for that. They're there to find probable cause and beyond a reasonable doubt. And this is what a jury of your peers has concluded about this. But you have to have consistent sentencing. You can't say, well, okay, this person presents well. The whole psychiatric thing. It's like, I don't think that you can replace religion and the idea of your responsibility in the eyes of God with by taking a court of law and psychiatry and fusing them together and saying, with these two, we will be able to determine all realities. All you end up with is not criminally responsible because the guy did something crazy. So consequently, he can't be criminally responsible because he was crazy. And it's like,